So tell us, what's going on in the world, man? Like, what are you, I know right before we started, you said you want to talk about America, its relations to its allies, the tariffs, the Trump stuff, but is there anything, I mean, we can even start there. Do you think there's been any net positive to the tariffs?
Honestly, no. I know you're supposed to say on the one hand, on the other hand.
You say whatever you want.
I'll tell you, to me, the tragedy of this is like one of the superpowers of America, the real superpowers, is that we have this group of countries that are our allies, that are friendly with us, that trade with us, that we've built this ecosystem. And so you can't just look at what we can do. What you have to really ask yourself, what can we do along with Europe, along with Japan, along with Australia, because they're all on board. They're all part of the American ecosystem.
Yep.
And if you look at the tariffs, the way Trump is doing them, they actually get slammed the most because they're being punished for trading with us closely. Because the ones that we have a lot of trade with are the ones that end up getting the worst.
Even higher.
Tariffs. I mean, crazily, the one country exempt from all the tariffs is Russia. But even if Trump had thrown Russia in, the truth is we don't do that much business with Russia.
Maybe
so
that's
it
why,
wouldn't make a big difference. But it's the Canadians who've like linked their economy to ours for the last 30, 40 years that are getting slammed. It's the Mexicans who've reformed their economy to, essentially make it almost like an integral part of the American supply chain. Like we don't make cars in America anymore. We make cars in North America.
Right.
We go, and the parts go back and forth 16 times, which is why the tariff rates are sometimes really high, because every time one part crosses a border,
you got to pay that tariff.
You got to pay that tariff. And it's the Europeans. So to me, that's the tragedy. It's like we don't realize that's the unique thing about America. Like, China, you know how many military alliances China has? Russia and North Korea. You know how many we have? 59.
Yeah.
Right. That's what makes us special.
So help us understand this. Just like the average American, like myself, doesn't really know much about this. I keep hearing people saying, "Oh, these tariffs are devastating. They're bad for foreign relations. They're bad for foreign policy." Yet, many of these countries that we are now imposing tariffs on, tariff us. So why is it only bad for foreign relations when we are tariffing them? I think the average American looks at that and be like, well, tariffs can't be that bad for foreign relations if they're all tariffing us.
Right. So first important thing to understand, again, among our allies, this is the advanced countries in the world, average tariffs before Trump came to office were 2.5%. So for everyone. But, so you can always find some...
Averages get tricky though, right?
Agreed.
Because,
so the Europeans protect their agriculture.
And so how much do they tariff us on agrarian products?
So there are two kinds of things. One, they tariff us. It's not so much the tariffs. It's they don't import American chicken.
They refuse to take our stuff because they want to
believe
protect
that our chicken is washed in chlorine. They think that's bad. There are a lot of issues.
Started that?
There's a lot of issues on which there are a lot of issues on which Europeans basically agree with RFK Jr. Which is to say that we have too many chemicals in our food, things like that.
So they might be right about that.
Dude, I agree.
I actually think they're right about it. One of the few areas where I totally agree with RFK Jr. is on all that stuff. He points out, if you look at
on everything,
a box of cereal in Europe has like 8 ingredients. The same box of cereal has 18 ingredients. Like, what are the 10 things that we're putting in that they ban? So some of it is those kind of tariff barriers, non-tariff barriers. But the main point, because what you're saying is true, is that they tariff us. Look, everybody protects a few things, but we lived in a very low tariff world, so that these were not major distortions. And you could have your pet peeve, like you wanted to protect some agriculture, we wanted to protect something. What we've done is we've gone from 2.5%, we're at 15% now. Mm-hmm. So that's like a 6-fold increase. Mm-hmm. And what that's going to do is make everyone else raise their tariffs more. So suddenly everybody...
Why would it do that?
Because they have to retaliate, right? Well, because their feeling is if you're blocking our goods, we're going to block your goods.
But what if we say, no, you don't do that? You have access to our market, and our market is bigger, and therefore we have some leverage.
Right, and so that is essentially what Trump is doing.
Like when Costco buys a bunch of stuff, they get a much lower price. So when we buy a bunch of stuff, we get a much lower price.
Now remember, the European Union, which on trade acts as one, have about as much power as we do in that sense.
But we're
their market is
dismantling
about
that
as
European
big.
Union every day.
No, the trade stuff, they're pretty unified. So
yeah, but we got England out of there, so we'll get Germany out of there. You know, we're going to break it down so we can advantage.
I don't think England's doing great on its own.
No, I tease, but
so you're right. The two kind of players that can go mano a mano
and force
are the Chinese and the European Union, because they've got a bunch of leverage. But we'll always have a slightly higher. So you're right, they won't raise them to the level we do, but they'll raise them a certain amount. And all my point is, who suffers? The consumer, right? The American who goes to Walmart and now his food is more expensive, his clothes are more expensive. And by the way, that you don't give a shit whether this shirt costs you 20% more. But
there are people who really do.
But a person who lives on $35,000 a year.
1,000%.
So walk me through this, because I'm not an economist, but the theory to me that I understand.
Looks great today.
Oh, thank you, dude. I appreciate that.
Incredible.
I put on my wife's products.
I was complimenting him so much that I forgot how handsome you were.
Dude, thank you. I appreciate that. I was feeling left out.
I would go along with that.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a good-looking guy. Right?
I fully disagree.
Tan, like the tan. So anyway, as you play out this America First thing, I understood the idea. We go to Middle America a lot for these shows, and I see there used to be manufacturing there, and there's not. And I actually empathize with what they thought Make America Great meant. A lot of them. I'm sure there were racist people, but I think a lot of them were like, yo, we used to have manufacturing, we used to have jobs in the city, and now there's nothing. So, as in my mind, as I play that out, does that not eventually force America to build its own warehouses back up, to build its own manufacturing back up, maybe even forward-thinking things like supercomputer facilities or whatever? Do the tariffs not, in the long run, pay off in that sense, or not?
So it's a great question, because that is at the heart, really, of what Trump is trying to do. And I totally agree with you. That is a huge problem, that we deindustrialize, and we deindustrialize very fast, and it hurt certain areas a lot more than everywhere. But here's the problem. When you look at every rich country in the world, what has happened is, over time, you lose manufacturing and you move into services. And it's a very simple reason why. As you get richer and richer, look at your own lives, okay? As countries get richer and richer, they buy less stuff and they buy more services. So if you look at 1960, about half of all American consumption was on goods. Now, 25% is on goods. Most is on services.
Can you give an example of a service that we would transition
What we are doing? Entertainment, software services.
So going out to shows, dining out would be, these are all services?
All services, law, accounting, finance, consulting, software services, entertainment.
Opposed to a developing country who would spend more money on?
Making steel, making aluminum.
So the newly industrialized nations are putting as much the possible emphasis that they can on that, whereas we're buying movie tickets.
Now, give you a simple 80% of the American economy in terms of employment, 80% of Americans are employed in the services economy in America. You know how many employed in manufacturing? 8%. And actually, of that 8%, half of all manufacturing jobs are in branding, sales, which are service jobs. So really, it's 4% on the factory floor. So you're taking 85% of Americans, you're taxing them, you're penalizing them to subsidize this 4%, which is shrinking.
Now,
but let me just finish one thought, which is the reason we've surged ahead of all the other countries in the world over the last 30, 40 years, and we have, and I can go through the numbers if you want, is because we embraced the future. We said we're going to lean into technology. We're leaning into services, software services. We're the entertainment. We dominate the world in terms of entertainment. We export all that stuff to the world. We have huge trade surpluses. In other words, we send out a lot more of that than we buy of anybody. What was the last, Kazakh movie you saw, right? And
Borat.
but Borat doesn't count. By the way. But by the way, Trump doesn't count this. For him, the services economy doesn't exist. All he looks at when he looks at these tariff rates is stuff. Goods. How many cars did I sell you? How many cars did I buy? But the point is, we became the world's leading economy because we leaned into the future. And that's where, so I'll give you a simple statistic. German wages and US wages 25 years ago were roughly the same. Roughly speaking, we were a little higher. We're now our wages are 30% higher than German wages. European wages, on average, were 50% higher. If Britain were to join the United States as the 51st state, Britain would be poorer than every state in the Union. It is poorer than Mississippi on a per capita GDP basis. Why? Because we embrace services.
So how can they sustain life if they have such a small GDP?
Well, they're smaller countries, but so I'll give you the numbers.
I'm saying comparatively to...
So Mississippi is about, per capita GDP is about 47,000.
Yeah.
I think Britain is 46,000. So I mean, they're okay. But by the way,
is the cost of living less?
France is even lower. Standard of living is lower. That's the big difference. The standard.
That's something I noticed.
Look at average house size. Look at the number of rooms air conditioned. Look at the number of cars and average.
The size of the showers in
when I was living in Spain, I noticed that there was just an acceptance of a lower standard of living. Not to insult it. Like I thought it was really enjoyable. I had a great fucking time living there.
Right.
But it wasn't the same level. Like just assuming your apartment is AC is an American thing.
Right.
We're just assuming everybody has a flat screen.
Exactly. Now here's an interesting question though, which is I throw it out to all of you. The Europeans, particularly in the north, where their incomes are a bit higher and they have really good government and it works well, they find that the quality of life in terms of happiness, they score much better than we do.